Good afternoon. Welcome to this live webinar. We're just going to be a couple more minutes while I can see a couple of people still who are registered coming on live. So yeah, I'll just give them another minute or so and then we'll get going with this webinar. Thank you. Okay, and yes, while those last couple of people are just signing up, if you do have any questions, there should be the option to ask a question in the sidebar. So feel free to add comments there. I will try and keep an eye on them as we go through. Or you can ask questions at the end, or you can email me as well, but that's not going to be as live. But maybe you're watching this as a review after the event. Feel free to drop me a line, guy@ggfit.com. I will try and do those contact details at the end too. So I'm going to unfocus my screen because it's not as interesting watching me, and go into the slide deck that we used last week. So this was a session at the Independent Gym and Studio Owners Conference last Tuesday. I know there's a couple of people registered on this webinar who weren't at the event, or even maybe aren't part of the Facebook group because they're not independent gym and studio owners, but that's fine because we've got a few extra registrations and a few extra £5 into the charity pot for Click Sergeant, which is a charity supported by the guy who ran the event, Rob Handy. But I want to take around 35 minutes or so today to run through the content from my presentation. Let me do a quick introduction on that. So it was a full hour, and I was talking about retention. That was pretty much it. The first 15 minutes of the hour was actually a quiz, which isn't going to work so well over a webinar. So we're not doing that, but I am going to take a minute at the end, if it's okay, to just run through a couple of notes on business coaching. In terms of background, my name's Guy Griffiths, and my core skills are looking at data, particularly membership data, life coaching and motivating members and staff and gym owners, and looking at processes. And that's really what I'm going to focus on in the presentation today, talking about processes that are going to get your members in your gym, whether that's an independent gym or a gym chain, to stick around longer. So I'm going to run through not all of these areas because parts of this were covered by other presenters on the day. But in terms of retention strategy, you do need to be thinking about retention when you are prospecting, when you are doing sales. You need to sell the induction or getting started session, for example. But I'm going to focus on new members, so on the new member onboarding area. Then we're going to probably spend 10 minutes or so on absent members, so contacting absentees, and then also look at leavers. These were my 3 focus areas for the event and what I'm going to run through this afternoon over these 30 minutes or so. So I'm going to jump straight in. Like I said, for those people who've just come on live, please ask questions on the right-hand sidebar if you have any as we go through. In terms of onboarding and new members, it is or should be a big focus for clubs in getting onboarding right. Although only 10, maybe in January, 20% of your members are new. If you get this part of the journey right, it is worth spending more than 10 or 20% of your time on, because those members will stay longer if you get the onboarding journey right. And one of the key things is the first appointment. The first, we often call it an induction, although I always encourage clubs to get away from the word induction to use something different, like getting started session or first appointment or step 1, because most people have had an induction before. But the reason the induction is so important is something that I sometimes run another little quiz, a bingo session on. Just have a think for 10-15 seconds, or maybe write down 2 or 3 reasons, or even add them to the comments on the right hand side of the webinar there, why you think an induction is important, and then I'll run through the reasons, or the key reason that I believe clubs should do inductions. So what is the key point or the main point, do you think, from a retention point of view, of getting people to have a welcome session, or as we often still refer to it, an induction? The answer most people come up with straight away is health and safety, which is not the right answer. I'm going to run through the other answers people give, showing people how to use equipment. Writing a program is also interesting and maybe useful for certain members, but it's not the key reason to do an induction. Building a rapport with members is something that people often say, and that is, again, a good reason. It's not the key reason for doing inductions. Discussing goals, also good. Building member confidence. Filling out a PARQ. Even a few people answered that at the conference last week. And there may be a tongue-in-cheek, we want to sell PT, therefore inductions are important. Well, they are, and if you do more inductions, you will probably sell more PT. But the main reason for doing an induction or some kind of welcome session is to ensure members make one visit. That's my key reason for having a first appointment. And this sounds a bit crazy or even unbelievable, but there are clubs out there where more than 10%, some clubs closer to 20% of their members make no visits whatsoever. They join online and then make no visits. So this is the same, the country or the world over. People will join a health club or a gym or a studio even, and then not turn up. And there's only a few, and I think independent gyms is not as bad, but there will still be people who are at risk of making no visits. So an induction is a great reason to get them into the club. If it's not called an induction, you'll probably have more chance. And the key thing on the induction that you want to do is to make sure they are going to make another visit. So that's the next reason. That's your goal within that first session, is to ensure the member who maybe has just taken the biggest step of their life to get into a gym, coming through those doors into your fitness center, was really a big ask for them. We need to make sure they're comfortable and that they are going to come back. Because when I said 10, sometimes even closer to 20% of members make no visits, there are often another 10% of joiners who will make one visit and no more. So we need to make them feel comfortable, make them feel at ease, confident, and get them engaged in the club. So the effect of an induction, or in this example, it was actually a step one, for joiners who joined, this is across 14 sites. It's something like, it's close to 2,000 members from January 2017 across the Leisure Trust. The ones who had a step one, a welcome session, I think I can zoom in a bit on this, are 50% likely to be, 52% of them are still members a year later. They are still active paying members 12 months later, which is actually the UK average retention rate. Those who didn't have a step one, they didn't have an appointment in January 2017, or even in February, only less than 30% of those were active 12 months later. So you can see the effect of the step one, the induction at this client. Showing this kind of evidence to the instructors, they realize that members are more likely to stick around if they have a well-delivered step one, as they call it. Step one, we went with that because there's a step two and a step three at that particular club, or those particular sites. So onboarding is really important. Getting the first appointment done is also really key to retention. Within that appointment, what do you do? There should be some goal setting. The main thing that I always coach is to talk about listening, which is very difficult on a webinar. Unless there are some questions which you have, I will gladly listen to them. But instructors need to remember they have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and they should ideally be speaking or asking questions less than a third of the time and listening to this member. They will listen. If they listen, they'll learn from the member, they'll find out about them, and the member will enjoy the induction more. So there's certainly something about talking about goals within that induction, SMART goals if you can, goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely, or targeted. Lots of different SMART acronyms. I won't go into all the detail now, but goals are important for retention as well. Some more research we did just quite a few years ago now, but another reasonably large leisure trust who recorded goals in their my wellness system. Well, it was the wellness system then. And you can see here that people on a contract who had a goal, and I don't just mean lose weight or shape up, this was a proper written goal within the system. They stayed a lot longer than members who didn't have a goal recorded in the system. So this is an instructor sitting down with a member, either at the induction appointment or at a review, and talking about their goals. And it's the same effect even for casual members who weren't on contract. You're getting another 4 months out of members who have recorded a goal as part of their induction or their program review. So goals are really important to retention, and it should be a key part of your induction, and you need to sell this induction. Other things you can use to sell it are measurements, whether it's just jumping on a set of scales or a full biometric measure from someone like InBody, who were also presenting at the conference last week, giving a member a MyZone belt or selling them one, doing DNA tests. All these kind of things add value to the induction. And whether or not you're charging for it, it's important that members see the value and don't just see it as a tour or a demonstration of a treadmill, which, let's face it, a lot of them will have had before. So some kind of measures are good because you can follow up with these at subsequent appointments. It's setting the scene of the kind of value they're going to get from other appointments with your staff as they go through their journey. So measurements are really good. And then after the induction, I mean, presumably you sent a welcome message as they joined, but a follow-up email to say, thanks for that, possibly asking for some feedback on how the induction went. After that initial appointment and a follow-up email, we always then look at a 7-day call or possibly a 14-day call. I think 14 days is a little later. Someone is unable to subscribe to the stream. Unable to subscribe to stream. Okay, I will have a look at that in a moment. The 7-day call. If you're not calling your new members within the first couple of weeks, then really you're missing a trick, because it's a vital feedback checkpoint for your new members, just to make sure they're doing okay, make sure they've made a visit. So from a member point of view, looking at their goals, if you've recorded them, or if you haven't, checking in on what they are, asking about their recent visits and classes they've attended, and just checking when they're going to visit again. It's just a nice member-focused viewpoint to say, how are you getting on? And from a club point of view, you can find out if those first sessions or inductions, whatever they're called, are going okay. Is the new member happy with their fitness coach? Is the app working? Have they downloaded it? And a bit like the email that you sent after the induction, it's a good point to get some feedback. Now, if everything's working well, then the 7-day call, you really ought to be asking for a referral. And clubs that do 7-day calls, we have mystery shopped them with mystery. And when 7-day calls don't happen, it raises a flag to the sales team, because these people should be asking for referrals. It's a perfect opportunity to get a member who's doing well to bring a friend down. So after the 7-day call, members are going to be doing a workout or a class, some cardio, some weights. And the other two things that we've got here on part of the onboarding journey, other than maybe joining a new member challenge, is some PT, which often in a lot of clubs I've seen looks like that. You're either being shouted at, or the PT is showing you how big their muscles are. It should be more about more targeted goals, and again, listening to the member. But maybe a PT session towards the end of a member's first month, not a free PT session, but some kind of session, or a high five communication call that says, hey, you've been a member for a month now. And these kind of things will also help you with your measures and will help you with member retention going forwards. So part of the process, we've got our first appointment talking about goals, getting some measures, whether that's from an InBody machine or through a MyZone belt, and follow up, a 7-day call, and then either or both a PT session and a high five message. Because Getting these processes right, if you've got time within each instructor or staff member's shift to just send some messages out and to prioritize your new members, you won't leave any new members behind, or you won't leave any members behind. So this is really an agreement between you and your staff, but also between your team and your members, to say these are the things you get, going back to what I was talking about with joining and even marketing. This is the value you'll get from our club. This is what we promise and what we deliver. And if you don't get it, you can hold us to account for it. Because using those kind of processes, you can then say, look, we've now got some key performance indicators. I won't go through them all, but the point of some KPIs is to be able to measure how members are getting on, how your club is getting on, how your staff are getting on. You'll also, hopefully, through these processes, get some more feedback, get some testimonials and referrals. And KPIs are great. It's interesting looking at stats. If, like me, you're into data, it's very interesting. But it's only useful if you take some actions and know if the first month targets are hit, what are the rewards? If they're not hit, then what's the repercussions and what do we need to do to improve? So a little bit there on onboarding. The error someone has, unable to subscribe to stream, keeps coming up on screen. I'm not sure what I can do with that at the moment, but hopefully you'll be able to watch the review later on. I'm going to move on from onboarding if there's no other questions. Like I said, new members are important. Active members are the majority of your members, but based on some like questionnaires and requests that we sent out, and also discussions within the group, there was more focus really on how we handle absentees. So absentees and leavers are the other two things I'm going to cover. I'm going into absent members. The timing, as we know, is absolutely critical. What we don't want to do is be contacting members who have been absent for a long time. And again, this has been a discussion in the Independent Gym Owners Facebook group. It was a good debate at the event itself last week. The important thing is to catch sleeping members before they really go properly to sleep. So we have a segmentation within the clubs that we work with called active members, and then members that are in recovery, and members that are dormant, which I'm going to go through. And I'm going to explain this start with the why in a classic Simon Sinek formula, and then go through the how and then the what. So why do we contact absentees? We know some of them will come back, whether they're contacted or not, but we don't generally know which ones will come back, whether they're contacted or not. Some will be on holiday, but it could be worse, and it's better finding out what has happened to your absent members than not knowing. In fact, there's nothing worse than an absent member who is still alive but just isn't visiting. So we want to find out what has happened to the member and find out what we can do to get them back into the club, whether it's making an agreement or a pact or some kind of deal with them to get them back. How we're going to do it, before we get into the how and the what, actually, first of all, how many attempts will we make? We know from the sales presentation earlier, it can take 7 or more calls to actually get a member to join. So we should be using more than one attempt to get these members back. Okay, typically 2, 3, but some of the clubs we work with have 5 or 6 attempts to get absentees back into the club. As well as how many attempts, when will you contact them? So this gets into this window of recovery. And we had a bit of a debate about this at the conference, harder on a webinar, but active members typically are in the last 21 days. Some people say if you visited in the last 2 weeks, you're active. But if you are starting to contact people after 2 weeks of absence, you'll be contacting a lot more people. So 21 days is what we generally go with or recommend. So anything from 21 days up to, again, this is it can be a big debate here, but I'm just going to say that we tend to go with up to 45 days. We do have a private family-owned club, that go up to 75 days. They actually send a letter at 75 days of absence to their members, and they get very good results from it. But anyway, the standard is normally between 21 and 45 days. So if there's 3 contacts, 21, maybe 33, and then maybe 45, if you're contacting everyone on those kind of regular intervals. So this is a list that you're producing of members who visited 21 days ago but haven't been in since, that you're then going to contact somehow. And if you do this daily, that's fine. You need to have your system set up to produce these lists and or message or call these members on a daily basis. That can be a little tricky depending on how your systems work. When we run these processes for clubs, we do it daily. But weekly is probably a little simpler. And if it's something you want to start doing yourself, I would suggest looking at weekly, and maybe not doing 21, 33, and 45, but maybe 21, 28, 35, and if you want 42 as well. So you're basically running a list off every Monday or every Tuesday or every Friday or whenever is good. But each week, a list of people who visited 21 to 28 days ago, 21 to 27 days ago, was in the club, but they haven't been in since. Then we can work out how we're going to contact them. So this recovery window then gives us the what we're going to do. There's 3 kind of standard ways, and some systems will trigger these messages out automatically by text, by email, or even it will generate letters or postcards to send to members. Those are the 3 good ways and the 3, I would say, easy ways of getting members back. Bear in mind there are phone calls are an option as well, and are normally the most successful, but they are time consuming and we can't always guarantee that they happen. In terms of return rates, we so as well as sending messages, we obviously monitor the effectiveness. And text messages, while they cost 4p or probably less if you're buying in bulk, 69% of members come back within 10 days of a text first. Email is not quite as successful. It's around 66% come back within 10 days of an email, which actually is still it's very similar, and it's reasonable considering the open rate normally of emails. But postcards are the most effective way. They're also the most expensive. So we tend to lead on text messages. If we can't text someone, we'll send them an email. If we can't email them, we'll send them a postcard. But it might be that the 45-day communication are all postcards because everyone's already got a text and an email. The important thing is to mix it up and to use different methods to try and get these members back into your club, and intersperse those with a call as well. Calls are best. You get really good feedback from members. When I look through call logs, I tend to see people apologizing, saying thank you for the call, I will be back soon. And finding out that someone is on holiday is a great opportunity when you next see them in the club to ask them how their holiday was. Even better if you can remember where it was. So getting absentees back, you need to do it in that window. You don't want to be contacting people who haven't visited for 6 months, but you do need to try and catch people as they go through that window of recovery. The final part then is talking about leavers, and a lot of clubs really do stick their head in the sand when it comes to leavers, and if we do ignore leavers, we miss out on an awful lot of information. For starters, we don't know how many leavers there are if we really are just ignoring them. We don't find the reasons they're leaving. We don't get feedback from them that might be useful to help improve the club. We don't get an opportunity to save their membership. And it also reduces the chance you have of following up with leavers to try and get them back and re-engage them in the future. So if you are ignoring leavers, actually you're missing out on a lot of information. And I would say that leaver information is as important as your sales information. So I'm going to run through, not in the start with why this time, but I'm going to start with how, and then talk about why they want to leave and what you can do to change their mind or just let them leave on a good note. So the how, it would be great if everyone walked into the club and said, I would like to, sorry, not everyone who was leaving, if they wrote or walked in and explained they wanted to leave, it would be brilliant. We get a lot more people who just stop paying or don't renew at the end of their term. So if we can take all these members into the cancellations department or the retention team or the sales department or an independent gym owner, that's great, and we can start a process and get some discussion going with some of these members, hopefully, and get some data from them. Another way is to send them all an email, having had the chat with them, and say, if you fill in this online form, which is not a menu link from your website, then you can collect some unbiased comments from them and find out why it is they want to leave. Some open text is, we're not just saying, look, I'm moving away or I'm not getting results, but really asking them for feedback. Then you get a lot more data that you can do something with. So the conversations are good. If you want to filter certain people down a different route and just automatically send them an email to this link, if it has unbiased comments in there that they have to fill in, then that's good. Thinking about how BT, Sky, or Virgin, or any other phone, TV, broadband providers cancel, it is typically phone. Phone is the choice you have. You can only get on to the help desk for half an hour and speak to them. But personally, I think it's important to give people other choices, other options to cancel than they have to phone up. So making it easier does make you a more ethical business, and if you can still collect data, then that's good. Because what we sometimes run through here is a brainstorm, and it's something you can do in your club to talk about what the primary reasons are for people moving away. And then from those primary reasons that people left last month or are leaving this month, you can then look and say, okay, what ideas, what options do we have to save them? Do we do membership freeze? Do we offer them a friend voucher? And getting any other feedback from these members who are leaving, ideally through a conversation or through that form, is going to be helpful, because we can then say, right, we've got the how they're trying to leave, we've got the why that they're trying to leave, and we can now go into the what are we going to do about it? Because what we want is for them to stay. What they want at the moment is to leave, but is there a way of meeting in the middle or bringing them back to our end and getting them to stay? So we know how and why they try to and want to leave, and we've got something hopefully about their original goals, their visit history, whether they brought any friends down. And what we can do now is have that conversation or send them a message with some promises, or we can offer them a freeze, or ultimately on the other end of the scale, they're going to leave. So within these offers and promises, I'm going to rattle through this a little bit, but things like, let's give it one more chance, depending on the reasons. What would it take? Or if we promised you that, can we just keep this going for one more month? And that those aforementioned broadband TV providers are great at this kind of thing. We'll pay for a PT session for you. In fact, we'll pay for a PT session every week for you. This is not free PT, because free PT has very little value. Or just offering a program review and saying, look, just come down once a week. We'll, we may reduce your price or whatever else, but shaking on some kind of agreed promise, target, renewed goal, and maybe even setting a date for that, and maybe even having a contract. It could just be some notes in an email, but you might actually say, look, let's try this for one more month on this basis. If we deliver this, would you stay? The next one along membership freeze. A lot of people do offer freeze on memberships. It may be paid for or it may be free of charge. The thing that often goes wrong in our experience is that there isn't, it's not very well defined. And when the freeze ends, what happens is you start taking the members' money again, and they complain that, oh, I thought I'd cancelled, or the money isn't there. So telling the member when the freeze ends is really crucial, and not many clubs do it. They just invoke the DD again and try and take the money or the full money out. So when the freeze happens, it's really important to have either a template or just a handwritten message that goes out and says, okay, we've agreed to freeze on this basis, and it's going to end on that date. And we will send you a reminder a week before that date. So there's the reminder a week before or a month before. And within that reminder, you can put something like, you know what, your freeze ends on the 1st of January, but if you want to come in December, it's really no sweat. Yeah. In fact, here's a guest pass. If you want to come down before then, it would be great to see you, because then there's definitely going to be no problem taking the money from them in January. Also, if it is a longer term, if you're freezing for 3 months, month 2, why not send them a stay in touch message? Pop in. Obviously, you're on freeze at the moment, but don't be a stranger. If you want to come in for a coffee, that's going to be fine. You could come back sooner. So offering the freeze is good. Just be communicative through the freeze process with your members. And finally, when members leave, the first thing you should be doing, is probably not the first thing you want to do, but say thank you. Thank them for their business, thank them for their membership, offer them good luck wishes, offer them a change their mind. Why not say, if you change your mind in the next 30 days, you can come back for, with no joining fee or whatever other gambit you want to use. And you could follow that up in 28 days to say, how are you getting on? So saying thank you is good. Sending something a month later, whether it's still in there if you change your mind period, asking them how they feel, either triggered through your system or the month after they leave, and ask just simple questions, not about why they left anymore, but what they're doing now. Are they a member of a club? You will find that more than half the members who leave, particularly ones that may say they're going somewhere else, will not have made a decision. The surveys we do for ex-members typically find 50-60% doing nothing now. So it's worth finding out, because it's more grist to your mill to send out further surveys and further questions, and maybe an offer as well. But just staying in touch with members after they leave is important, and that's the bit we would cover sometimes in the ex-members section up there. So that's my rattle through for this webinar on new members, on absent members, on leavers. So talking about retention. We hope to put more of these on next year. I do just want to quickly mention business coaching, because this is something I popped up at the end of the conference. So one of the things we do, as well as just talking purely retention, is helping individuals, businesses, but specifically gym owners with direction, accountability. It's great being your own boss, but sometimes it's nice to have someone to use as a sounding board, but also to hold you accountable to actions and to help grow the business. As I say, sounding board, listening, bringing up ideas from time to time, but typically working with your ideas and getting those implemented. So this is one of the things we do, or that I do as a service, some gym owner coaching. You can sign up for free at ggfit.com/GOM, which is part of the Gym Owner Monthly magazine articles that I write. There were 3 people who signed up last week at the conference, so there are still a couple of places for the one-off call, which would need to be booked in December, which if you were to sign up today would just be £50 rather than £75. Half of that goes to ClickSargent, so it would be 25 of the 50 I would then forward on to Rob for the ClickSargent fund as part of the overall event. So if you're interested in that, please let me know. Other than that, that was the retention half-hour version. If you have any questions, please feel free to hit me up on ggfit.com. You can look through these slides if you wish, IGS UK 1912, and you can watch this video back again and again. That's the webinar itself. And yeah, follow us at ggfit on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. The only other thing to say is I hope you have a great Christmas. Thank you very much for watching. And yeah, if you have any more questions, then as I say, hit me up, Guy at ggfit.com, or on Twitter at ggfit. I'll be online for another minute or two with any other questions on the webinar. Otherwise, thank you very much.